Hi, my name is Tony DeMeo, and I'm Sheriff of Nye County. I'm the elected constitutional office holder for Nye County Sheriff's Office. I came to Nevada after retirement from New Jersey, Jersey Police Department. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, as you can tell. I'm not from these parts. Came out here to retire. I got involved again in law enforcement, serving as a deputy. Subsequently, I ran for sheriff, and I was elected sheriff in 2002 and began serving my term as sheriff since 2003. I'm right now in my second term. One of the responsibilities we have as a constitutional office holders is ensuring that our people, our deputies, and those that are within Nye County, especially those in law enforcement, observe the Constitution, because that is the law of the land. We also have a state constitution as well, which we're also responsible for upholding. One of the great responsibilities that we have is protection of our constituency, and sometimes that involves being the buffer and intermediary with the federal government. In Pahrump Valley, where we are right now, we deal with typical law enforcement issues, that being calls to service involving disputes, calls to service involving property theft, those involving crimes against the people. Up in northern Nye County, we deal with other issues that are different than typical law enforcement, which is I'm used to dealing with in a city. That would be dealing with BLM, the U.S. Forestry Service, ranching issues, water right issues. We still have, sometimes we have cattle rustling. The area which we have some of the issues and some of the conflicts with our federal authorities would be a Pine Creek Ranch. Wayne Hage bought his ranch quite some time ago, and that was a lifelong dream. He went to college. He started working a ranch. He actually dropped out of school to work a ranch, and he loved it so much that he decided that his lifelong dream was to own a ranch. Him and his wife Jean and the children bought what is known as Pine Creek Ranch, which is a patented land of 7,000 acres, but it's an allotment of 700,000 acres. And to give you an idea how big that is, that's 1,100 square miles, about 1,100 square miles of allotments that he has to run a couple, 2,000 head of cattle. And in order to operate any type of business, you need water rights. You need some ability to actually get your water. If you're not connected to a public utilities, which Pahrump is, majority of the water that's given to or taken from residents is from underground. Wayne Hage was kind of surprised that the U.S. Forestry Service was interested in his water rights, and he contacted the state water authority, and which actually controls the water rights. They know where all the water rights are and who owns them. It's like owning land, so to speak. And he was informed that the federal government, U.S. Forestry Service, was actually in the process of actually filing for his water rights. And in order for Wayne Hage to conduct his cattle business, he needs water rights. If you don't have water rights, you can't conduct your cattle business, and if you don't have a cattle business, you can't utilize your water rights. So this is what Wayne Hage believed was a way for the federal government to shut down his ranching operation. The issues, as I see in Nevada, especially in Nye County, especially dealing with Wayne Hage, was that these are water issues. They actually have to deal with water right issues, and in Nevada, if you can't show any beneficial use for your water rights, you actually lose them. After 5 years, if you can't show that you actually need those water rights and that you actually lose them, and they revert to the state, and then the state decides who's going to get those water rights. Wayne Hage was going back and forth with the federal government as far as his water rights until 1991, when he was surrounded by the U.S. federal government with agents. Fully armed, wearing flak vests, and some perched on high areas of high ground areas, and contacted Wayne Hage and told him that they were in the process of seizing his cattle. And at that time, cattle was removed from the Pine Creek Ranch, and Wayne Hage at that time was filing against the federal government. Actually, started a case against the federal government, which he filed in the U.S. Claims Court. And since 1991, he's had these conflicts with the BLM and conflicts with the U.S. Forestry Service, up until even to this day. We're in 2009. Sadly, in 2006, Wayne Hage succumbed to natural causes and he died. Shortly after his death, though, I got a phone call from a representative, the special agent in charge of the Nevada office for the U.S. Forestry Service. And at that time, the SAC informed me that she has come to a resolution how we can manage and take care of Wayne Hage's problems with the cattle and the seizure and the federal managed lands, which it's public lands. It's not really, they're not owned by the federal government. They're actually public lands, which are owned by the people. The federal government under the BLM, which is the Bureau of Land Management, which was formed in 1946. From the combination of the grazing office and the general land office, formed this management office. The federal government doesn't own the lands; are actually within the state of Nevada. The state of Nevada, as I understand, hasn't given those lands to the federal government. They're within the state of Nevada, and I believe the state of Nevada actually has sovereignty on those lands. That's my belief, and what's I believe as far as the states' rights issues and the 10th Amendment. See. So when my conversation with Ms. Matthews, the SAC, where I was informed that she was in the process of actually getting ready to do a cattle seizure or attempt to do a cattle seizure on behalf of the U.S. Forestry Service, I asked her to, I told her, I said, listen, Wayne Hage isn't cold in the ground yet. He died a little more than a month ago. And this meeting happened in the middle of July. And I asked her why she was in the process of actually, considering this option, and especially when I told her that the case is in the U.S. Claims Court, and the judge is overseeing this, and I believe that the federal government should actually hold off any type of a cattle seizure, any kind of a seizure at all, until this case is settled in a proper venue, which is the court. And at that time, she said that she had some great ideas and that she would be willing to meet with me. I had a meeting with her a couple weeks later in the office here in Pahrump, Nevada, and attending that meeting was the area commander of this Southern Area Command, Captain Bill Beck, which at that time we explained to her what the Constitution stood for and why we weren't going to allow them to do a cattle seizure without intervention from the county sheriff's office. I informed them that we have a responsibility to protect the constitutional rights of our citizens. I expect my deputies to protect the constitutional rights of our citizens, and I expect that the federal government also, which is responsible for the Constitution, falling under the law of the land, should also respect the Constitution as well. And during the conversation, I asked Ms. Matthews, who did she work for? And she said, she works for the U.S. Forestry Service. I said, no, who's the authority that you derive your authority from? And at that time she said the U.S. Congress. And then I informed her that that's not the right answer, that in law enforcement and in government, we govern by the consent of the people that we govern. My badge doesn't give me authority to govern as a sheriff. I get the authority to govern by the people who put me in office. We, in every policing agency, we understand that the power that we have, authority that we have, emanates from the people who we serve. It doesn't come from us. It doesn't come from the government. It comes from the people we serve. Our forefathers were very clear in plain language to state that in our Declaration of Independence and plus our Constitution, and laying out the amendments to the Bill of Rights that follows the Constitution and in the Articles of the Constitution. That I informed Ms. Daniels that there be no unlawful incursions onto Pine Creek Ranch, and that if she had any issues with the landowner and the person responsible for the allotments, Mr. Wayne Hage, that she can contact the Hage estate now. She can contact me and be more than happy to to assist. The meeting was ended. In the late 1990s, the BLM did a seizure of cattle from the Hage Ranch, along with the Coven Ranch, which is in Esmeralda County. And at that time, the sheriff, my predecessor, left Nevada, went on a fishing trip. And during that time, the seizure took place. At that time, they took cattle from Wayne Hage's estate, from the Wayne Hage Ranch, and the person left in charge in the county sheriff's office in that area didn't have the authority, he stated, to stop the seizure. The quote was, he didn't want to go to Club Fed. when I came into office in 2003, a couple of months after I came into office, and I expected BLM, based upon the history that I was aware of, to start, to initiate some type of an action against Wayne Hage's ranch. And at that time, empowered my area commander, Assistant Sheriff Joanna Cody, and all the people in the Northern Area Command to stop any type of illegal cattle seizure from whatever governmental entity it was, whether it be from the state government, which we didn't believe was going to be a problem, but the federal government, whether it be BLM, U.S. Forestry Service. And at that time, a couple months into my administration, I get a phone call from my lieutenant advising me that they were in the process of conducting a legal seizure and legal action against Wayne Hage, which I told them, I informed them that they would carry out my orders and making sure that no illegal action took place against a constituent or citizens of Nye County, and that any unlawful action from the federal government would result in an arrest by the people that are there. And at that time, I was informed that they were in contact with a U.S. attorney, and that the U.S. attorney was advising them that, advising the members of the Nye County Sheriffs and my lieutenant that if I didn't allow them to take these actions against Wayne Hage, that they were going to have a warrant for my arrest, which I said, I'll give my address and I'll be waiting for them. They can contact Las Vegas office, which is the closest one. We're only 45 miles from Las Vegas, and they can come to my residence and they can conduct whatever action they thought was appropriate, even though I stood on legal ground according to the Constitution. One of the interesting issues that came to me, or one of the interesting comments that came to me, was from one of my people who was up in the Northern Area Command, which informed me that the federal government was interested in seizing cattle, and they use any means necessary, including armed federal agents, which I informed my deputy to notify that member of that federal agency that if they brought any armed federal agents to Nye County to conduct an illegal search and seizure, that they would be faced with the Nye County Sheriff's Office SWAT team as well, and then we'd be standing between them and my constituent, and to advise them that nothing was going to take place, and if they conduct any kind of illegal action, that they would be placed under arrest. And that goes across the board. You know, we placed members of my office under arrest. I didn't see any reason for us not to be able to arrest a member of a federal authority if they're conducting an illegal search and illegal seizure. And that action didn't take place. Apparently, I didn't know if they were posturing. The deputy didn't know if they were posturing as well. But shortly thereafter, we didn't have any more issues with BLM. I explained to him what the Constitution was. I explained to him my position as the sheriff of Nye County. I explained to him the position that we're taking as law enforcement authority and protector of life and property for our constituents in Nye County. And I explained to him what the Constitution was. I explained to him the errors that they have committed. These seizures that were taking place were not court ordered. They weren't ordered by a judge. What it was a signature by Representative BLM stating that that BLM rangers are going to seize these cattle with whoever they contracted to take the cattle into custody and then take them off the property, which they did several times in Nye County, and sell them outside of not only the Fourth Amendment unlawful seizure, but also the Fifth Amendment of due process. And also, the government has to compensate for any property they take, and it's paraphrasing the Fifth Amendment, but you take property, you have to compensate the property owner for it. And they did neither of those. And the order was for them to take cattle outside of any kind of federal, any kind of due process, without the ability of a rancher or the property owner actually standing in front of a judge in the court to plead the case and having their time in court, so to speak. And I explained to them that outside of a court order, that they would not be able to seize any cattle whatsoever, or they would not be able to take any property off the ranch. At one meeting I had with BLM, Representative BLM, they told me that they were going to seize cattle, and at that time I said, well, you can do whatever you want, except you're not going to be able to take the cattle off if you're looking to seize cattle. I said, it's not going to happen. And we're not going to pound any cattle on your behalf outside of fact. Maybe what we can do is, if you have a lawful order, we can hold the cattle. We're not going to have the cattle removed off the property. We'll impound them on the ranch. And as I said, I'll make sure that I tell the ranch, the owner of the ranch, to make sure this cattle stays on the ranch. And at that time, if he disobeys my request, and we'll deal with that on a local level. But as far as I'm concerned, that no cow's going to be removed from anyone's property without a court order. And since that time, they've never produced a court order as far as any type of a seizure. And after that meeting, the 2004 meeting, things kind of quieted down with BLM. We actually were able to work things out, and we came to an understanding if they were going to go on to the allotted lands, the Wayne Hage's allotted lands, or any ranch's allotted lands up in northern Nye County where these ranches are, that they would contact us, and then we would escort them around on the ranches, make sure there would be no incidents, that the BLM rangers would stay within their authority, which is to count the head of cattle. And at one time they were trying to issue a trespass against Wayne Hage for garbage, for his garbage area. He actually has a dump there on the ranch. And they were going to cite him for dumping garbage in this dump that he was allowed to have. And in fact, I actually contacted Wayne Hage when it came to my attention. They would issue a citation. And I asked Wayne Hage, I said, "Where's this dump you're talking about?" He says, "No, that dump's been there since 1860s. So I contacted BLM, and I said to the ranger, I said, "Let me ask you a question. This dump has been there since 1860. I know that BLM is a little slow, and I know the government is a little slow about taking some type of appropriate action. But I said over 130 years is a little ridiculous." Just give you a short synopsis of what happened following Wayne Hage's death and the death of his second wife. And I explain. In 1991, when Wayne Hage's property was seized by the federal government, he started he filed a lawsuit against and filed a case against the federal government. In 1996, the stress and strain that Wayne Hage believed, the stress and strain of his battle with the federal government, took the life of his wife. His wife, Jean, got very sick, and she died in 1996. Sometime after, he married Helen Jenoweth Hage. She was a congresswoman for Idaho, and they got married. And shortly after Wayne Hage died, she died as well, and she died in a car accident. After the death of Wayne and Helen Hage and Jean Hage, the federal judge rendered a decision in the case, and rendered a decision in favor of Wayne Hage. Actually stated in the case that the federal government actually illegally seized property. The case settled for over $4 million. Subsequent to that, in contact with the family, my understanding is that the federal government's appealing to the judge's decision, and that case is now in the hands of the court. Subsequent to that, the federal government has continued to write trespassing citations towards the Wayne Hage and his estate. Wayne Hage's estate. His ranch is now managed by Wayne Hage Jr. And to see the type of life that these people have, ranching is hard work, and all they're trying to do is put food on the table for Americans. Our concern and my concern is the fact that we import now most of our food. We import most of our resources in oil. We're now importing most of the resources that we once had in this United States, which was food, is now being imported into this country. And the concerns we have is, as citizens of Nye County and citizens and the ranchers, is the fact that the government is now could allow the United States to be held stranglehold, like OPEC controls the oil. That the concerns that a lot of citizens have is that that the food may be used as a way of holding America hostage in the future. 2004, where the BLM was looking to have law enforcement authority within Nevada. They tried to do this in 1997, where they were petitioning the state of Nevada, petitioning individual counties to give them law enforcement authority. They were asking for for local authority on public managed lands. And it was kind of interesting because I would have thought that if they were a federal law enforcement entity, that they would have ability to actually enforce laws on federal lands. Apparently they don't have that authority. And they were informed in 1997 that it was an overreach of Article 1. They felt that any encroachment back in '97 in the individual counties was unlawful and illegal, and they wouldn't stand for it. They actually told them no. They tried again in June of 2004. When I was sheriff, I found out about it. I wrote a letter to Erica Schumacher and to other members of the BLM to inform, especially the director of BLM, to inform them that we did not appreciate federalism taking place in Nye County, and that we weren't going to support it. And even though they stated in their letter, in their memo, that it wasn't federalism, we looked at it as such. They're overreaching their federal authority. They're trying to overreach their authority into Nevada, which we didn't appreciate, and especially in Nye County, we're on the law enforcement authority in Nye County. Then I informed them that it wouldn't be appreciated, that I wouldn't support it. In conjunction with that, the Nye County Commissioners issued a resolution stating that the Nye County Sheriff's Office is the law enforcement authority in Nye County. They didn't recognize their authority in Nevada, and that they didn't recognize they actually had any kind of authority to write any kind of citation on public managed properties outside of what they're given as far as writing the civil complaints or the criminal complaints that they write, as we believe as private citizens, not any type of law enforcement entity in Nevada. And so that was the last major attempt for BLM to actually get a law enforcement authority. And those are some of the issues that have taken place in Nye County with dealing with the federal government, and we find it somewhat troubling. We in the sheriff's office, we find it troubling, especially the deputies that actually are in Northern Area Command that patrol this vast area. Let me explain. The Nye County is as large as 4 East Coast states. Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Delaware, and Rhode Island can fit into Nye County with room left over. And so in the northern areas, that area they patrol is the size of the state of Massachusetts, well over 10,000 square miles. And the deputies have their time is spent especially in the real northwestern parts of our county to deal with ranching issues. And we do come in contact with BLM, the Rangers, and U.S. Forest Service time to time. But the issues that really, that we're really troubled about is the fact that an agency is looking to violate, a federal agency is looking to violate the Constitution. They take the same oath of office we do. The President takes the office to protect and serve the Constitution. His oath of office is 14 words. It's in we empowered through that by the Constitution. The oath of office is in our Constitution and the articles of our Constitution. We take an oath of office not only to protect and serve the Constitution of the United States of America, but the state Constitution as well, to protect and serve the citizens that we serve. And and we find that why people take an oath of office to protect and serve the Constitution and as people responsible of why we're breaking that Constitution. And we don't know whether they are knowledgeable about it, or we don't know if if it's the following of the orders, which we believe are unlawful orders, because outside of the law, if you're operating outside the Constitution, you're operating outside the state Constitution, you're operating outside of state and policy. It's an unlawful order, and our deputies can refuse unlawful orders. And we don't know why members of an agency, a federal agency, don't take the same stance and state no, it's an unlawful order. And so we're troubled by that, but we understand it's they operate sometimes in a different realm than we do. Sometimes I don't believe that law enforcement at the federal level, and not all law enforcement at certain levels, don't understand that their power doesn't come from the badge. Their power doesn't come from the President of the United States. Their power doesn't come from Congress or the Senate or the directors of the different agencies. As law enforcement, and going back and reading, a police academy manual going back to 1891, and in that document, they state that the authority emanates from the people we serve. It doesn't come from any type of, article of office. It doesn't come from the physical building or at all, but from the people we serve. And I find that maybe they don't understand that, and I think that sometimes people forget that those people that you're looking to encroach on their property unlawfully. It's unlawful encroachment. Doing unlawful actions is a violation of our Constitution, and it's also a violation to the people that you're serving, because because that's where your power comes from, and you can't violate that. And that's one of the esteemed pleasures we have, is to realize that, and the privilege we have. This office is not a right. Law enforcement, the officers, is not right to be a cop or to be a sheriff or be a deputy sheriff or work for any federal agency. It's a privilege you get when you pass your academy and then you're sworn into office, and it's a privilege that we have to serve. And it's not a vested right. It's a privilege. So I think sometimes we have to remind ourselves of that. Thank you for your time.